What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I am Alex, and I am joined by an incredibly special guest to do a very special type of video. We are here to rank the most recent 3 Doom games. Now, yes, Doom goes beyond Doom 2016, but these games are fresh. This really is, that kind of trilogy that people think of. And I have Wicked here. We actually done videos on my third channel, Podcast Now, Back to the Past, where we actually went through and played Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. So, Wicked, we are here to probably make people very mad if my recent videos is anything to go by. These games can be divisive when you put them, up against each other. But want to welcome you to the channel, and how are you?
I'm doing pretty well, man. Thank you for having me. As always, I always appreciate it. And you're right, we're probably going to make your viewers more upset than mine, because mine were more in view with our opinions as of recently.
Speaking of that, we want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments. Tell us your ranking. You can go further beyond just these 3 Doom games, but all right, I'm gonna go with my gut, and I'm very interested to see if you and me have the exact same rate, because it's highly possible we do. My number 3 game is going to be Doom: The Dark Ages. So I was going back and forth, and maybe recency bias plays into this. Again, for context, like, we've done videos on my third channel. We played Doom 2016 like a year ago, and then both of us played Doom Eternal like a month ago. Like, it wasn't that long. So we have all 3 of these games in our head, and I was going back and forth, man. I'm excited to hear what you have to say, but for me, and let's say this too. None of these games are bad. I think that's probably very important, for a video like this. You put a game dead last and everybody freaks out. No, Doom: The Dark Ages is I think, to me, what I call it, a great game, but not an amazing game. That's really where I stand. I think it has problems. It does, and the pacing is a little bit off. I think when they made it bigger, they did not necessarily make it better, and I think that's why I would put it third. Okay, specifically, like, the dragon stuff that I'm just not a fan of. Like, there's nothing that bad in Doom 2016. Like, you can really compare, like, the actual gameplay mechanics, and then if you go into the pacing, I think Doom 2016 had some really good pacing. It might have had better pacing than Doom Eternal, honestly, at times. So I feel like that kind of gives it a leg up. And then, I don't know, like, was there anything, like, as subpar in my mind? Like, the mech was fine. I talked about that in my review. I like the mech, but specifically when it came to the dragon, that was weak. And then it has the Doom feel. It feels great. Again, I'm not saying this is a bad game, but I don't know, just the pacing of it, how big this game was, and, several other things I talked about in the review, I do think puts Doom 2016 higher. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to you. What is your number 3?
So I'm going to take the brunt of the hate from you and just kind of take it on myself, because I have the same thing. Number 3 for me is Doom: The Dark Ages. And a lot of what you said in your review, it spoke to me personally, and my opinion is shared through you. But I'm going to take it a little step further and say this game is really good, but not great. I think that the mech and the dragon, like you said, were both disappointing. They were fine, but I was expecting a little more from them. Again, this game is really good. It's one of the top 10 games of the year for sure, but I think that the changes that they made specifically for me in terms of the story is what held this game back. Obviously, the music, there's more to the story about why they changed the music. That to me was overall a weaker part of the game as well. But the story here, it felt like the cinematics were so tied to this game, but the story felt more like a trilogy action movie from the 80s rather than the first one. This felt like a Terminator 3 or 4 instead of 1 or 2 for me, or even like a RoboCop 3 versus RoboCop 1. It just felt a little lacking. There wasn't anything in this game that was inherently bad by any means. This game is really fun, and I think this game is really good for those who haven't played the other 2 to kind of get their feet wet.
I honestly felt towards the beginning, towards the end, and they got me, actually, even emotionally, way more than I thought they would, / more than they did in the past Doom games. But at the same time, like, they focus so much on it, and then the middle, I don't know if you feel the same, but like the middle portion of the game, they gave up. Like, there was no story, and it felt a little bit more like Doom, like just getting from point A to point B, but they put so much emphasis on the story in the beginning and ending, that like those middle chapters just didn't feel like it was present, which is fine, but not if you're going to make it like a main feature, you know?
Yeah, and I think too, with just how vast they wanted to make this game, and to your point earlier, how much bigger it feels in terms of levels, I feel like how they did the stories in the other two Doom games being a little less in your face,
Yeah.
a little more you have to explore and find logs. Kind of like how in Elden Ring, the game is so big, but you get different story beats by exploring and by going out of your way to do different things. I felt like that would have been a little more of its benefit here, and I feel like it just kind of slowed the pace down a little bit too much for me. Still a great game, still think the story's good, still think the Doomslayer here is super cool and the shield is awesome. I just wish there was a little more.
Maybe because of the the look that they gave, having it be so much more focused on him in the cutscenes and whatnot. I thought he freaking rocked, in terms of just how badass he was. Okay, so we'll stick with you. We'll kind of do like a snake-like format. And what is your number 2?
So this is where I'll get even more hate to my channel, but my number 2, and this is where we might differ, is actually going to be Doom 2016. Now, I think that this game is absolutely incredible. I think that to start a trilogy where each game feels different is incredibly hard to do. And this new age of Doom is amazing. I actually think the Doomslayer is the best in this game in terms of like his aura, how he felt. This is where he felt like RoboCop 1 or the first Terminator, where he wakes up, he rips the chains off, crushes a demon immediately, and you're like, oh, I'm in it immediately. I liked here too that the story was really just holograms and logs, and I think that it was my personal favorite feeling that the Doomslayer gave. The music was incredible. I think the only reason that this game isn't number 1 is because of how, like in Dark Ages, the gunplay, it feels a little less rewarding than what my number 1 will be. It feels like you can play through this game with just 1, 2, or 3 guns instead of having to cycle through them. But I think overall this game feels like the most just play Doom, in my opinion, so where you can kind of forego everything else, forego the story and collectibles, and just play the game.
But I think when we did the videos on 2016 and then Doom Eternal, so Doom I feel like is a consistent better game. But I feel like the peaks that Eternal has, and I guess we'll get there when we get to number 1. So I guess I'll skip ahead. Number 2 for me is going to be Doom 2016. When we played it, and again, we did a whole video talking about it, but I don't remember it being that good. Like when I first, originally played it. I think upon replay and when we did it together, I think that game freaking rocks, and I think it was far, far better than I remember it being. So that elevates it, a lot in my head, because I feel like the feel of it was, again, like better than I remembered it being. And I think the pacing, I always go back to the pacing. I maybe make too big of a deal of it, but I feel like, for a game that's so heavy into the level design, we've talked before, like how they shuffle enemies in and out at you. I think the pacing is kind of everything for these type of games. And I really think they nailed it literally right away with 2016. And then Eternal kind of went back and forth. I guess we'll talk about that later. But I will say the peaks, the highest points of Eternal are better than 2016. And like when my hands are sweating and you just went through like 10 gauntlets in a row, that's more in Eternal than in this game, and that's where I enjoyed it more. And I said that even, Dark Ages, like where Dark Ages felt the best for me is when they got you into a small arena and said, okay, we're going to throw everything at you. It felt just like, very in line with the last 3 games, or last 2 games and then this game. So yeah, I mean, and I, like you said, like the story is present, like it's strong, told in a different way. The pacing of it really stands out as extremely good. But Eternal, maybe it's the recency because we played Eternal a month ago, but we played 2016 a year ago. But I will as well put 2016 there. Do you have any comments before I guess we go to number 1?
I think the only thing that I would add to that is that this game really was kind of a benchmark, and I just want to throw in more props to the studio behind these 3 games more than I ever could, because this game is such an incredible starting point. But to your point, it just there were things that I think Eternal just nailed a little more, which we'll get to now.
What I will say, okay, I guess maybe I'll go more towards negative for some reason than positive. Not the ending. Like the ending is really awesome, and there are so many gauntlets and so much fun to be had in this game. I would say like around the last third it did get into a repetition where, again, that word pacing, like I think it broke a little bit. Like I said, it's not from beginning to end. It is not as fun as Doom 2016, but when it gets going, and I just think the improvements, like, and the refinements, right? Like using the chainsaw at just the right time, the flamethrower, right? That kind of addition to do the armor kind of drops, even the multiplayer kind of upgrade. So like there's just a lot there that I feel like they refined all the way. And I think we talked about it too when we did the video, where that the shuffling of introducing an enemy and then you're gonna see them, right, and they place them in just kind of the perfect moments with the perfect surrounding cast. Like that one that I don't know if it's the Marauder, I don't think it's the Marauder, the one that does like the fire and like can do the firewall, like the way they introduce that, and then the way they sprinkle, because it's like a rarely used enemy, right? They don't use it all the time, but just the way they do it, I think is perfect. Like it literally, that's where the refinement of, we're going to find all these combinations of enemies and we're going to shuffle them around in these different areas, and then you'll have to kind of think on your feet. And just, again, like everything was kind of better of, I mean, I think you and I both watch, like people even on YouTube, right? People far better than us, the way that you can really maximize your potential and all the different weapons and all of their like side kind of abilities. Like the people that are incredible at these games, I think it shines more in Eternal than it did in 2016. I mean, you just had people freaking lighting it up in at least videos that we saw.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I did not know that I would miss a flamethrower so much when I started playing Dark Ages. But it was just everything about Eternal for me. It felt like that game and Eternal was how people saw the original first few Doom games, as someone who did not play the original games at all, who never touched Doom until we did our video for 2016. I think the difficulty spike here was so fun for me. I'm someone who will, as you know, and as I said in those videos, I will hit my head against the wall over and over and over until I eventually get it. And to me, this game was kind of like the Elden Ring of the Souls series, but for Doom, because I felt like the difficulty spike was there, the gameplay changes were there, and they just spoke to me. Every Doom game kind of feels like they have a little different add-on, right? Doom 2016 set the groundwork. The Dark Ages has the dragons and the mech and the shield. For me, as you know, big Nintendo fan, I love platforming, and a lot of the platforming in Eternal just was so fun to try to get through. I think the music here was the best for me. I turned the music on while playing Dark Ages, and it made my playthrough a little more enjoyable. And I think the discovery and just the layout of the story, the fact that it picks up right after Doom 2016.
When you look at Dark Ages and people say, you know, this or that one's better, I think maybe it's, again, because we just played it, but when it comes to Eternal, like the platforming is really fun. Like I think looking around and finding, you know, that discoverability, like I think actually that is kind of at its peak in the last game, Eternal, as well. Like Dark Ages does it differently, and I can respect like the use of the shield and stuff, but there's, again, something I think to kind of the distance of like how far you'll go to get a collectible, and again, there's something I think about like the map size, you know, about kind of the structuring of Eternal was kind of perfect. And then something I just didn't really want to forget to just hit, that I think many people would say, just like the way you can move in the game, right? Like the whole standing and fighting in Dark Ages, or then everything that you're doing, you know, in Eternal. I miss it, and you know, sometimes I guess when you say that, people say, well, then go back, right, and play Eternal. I'm not trying to turn Dark Ages into Eternal, and I think both of us have honestly been pretty fair with that, where it's like, you know, Dark Ages can be its own thing, and it's maybe you just don't prefer that style. I just that not even just running and gunning, right, but like Eternal is about like, okay, they're 2 levels higher than you, and there's all these portals, and you can get behind them, and all this different stuff, like not just the movement, but also like going up and down, right? All of the axes. You know, that is something very special that you flat out do not have, I think, in Dark Ages. And then Doom 2016 does have it, I think, more than I thought it did, but Eternal really has the traversal, plus you do that, you know, in the combat as well.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for movement games in any way, shape, or form, and I think that's just from playing different skateboarding games as a kid or different parkour games or anything like that, and this game just nailed it to a T for me. I love your point point about the collectibles because I found myself with the Dark Ages and even parts of Doom 2016 accidentally 100% completing a level, while in
Yeah.
Eternal, I felt the need to go back and 100% them because I felt like I had looked everywhere and then I just found it on my way going back. And I think just the game itself, it's definitely a stretch for newer people to the Doom trilogy to start with that game. And I want to give again Dark Ages and Doom 2016 their props because I personally think the order that we've set these games in is actually how someone should go into this trilogy. I think the Dark Ages is a great first game in this kind of mini franchise now in the bigger franchise to get started because you don't have to do all the movement. In Doom 2016 you do a little more movement and then you get to Eternal and it's just all the way out.
I want to thank Wicked for being here. His links and whatnot are going to be in the description. Like always, check him out. Great creator, great guy. And we want to hear, as I said, from you guys in the comments. I'm sure, depending on who the YouTube shows this video to, it might be a lot of people that agree. It might be a lot of people that disagree. But let us know what you think about all this stuff in the comments. Wicked, thanks so much, buddy, for joining me again.
Of course, anytime. I really appreciate it, and I'm always here to take the hate off your back.
Yeah, just ease it off me just a little bit. Well, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you all on the next one.